Hello, and welcome to Canada Reads American Style. This is Shauna.
And I'm Rebecca.
We have a special guest on today's podcast.
Please welcome Clint Malarchuk, author of this month's title, The Crazy Game, with Dan Robson.
Hi, Clint.
Hi, girls. Good to be on.
So tell us a little bit about what's going on that you have for the NBC, I hear.
Yeah, I just got this kind of a statement email thing that sent to me, and it was from NBC Sports, and they kind of gave a plan that could be expanded, and about a documentary that we filmed this summer. We spent about 4 days at my ranch here in Nevada. And it starts like Wednesday. They've got all this list of Wednesday, November 20th, 4 p.m., Sunday, 24th, 7 p.m. And then it's going to premiere on RSN's Regional Sports Networks from November 7th to the 10th. And it goes on and on from Boston, New York, Philly. I'm like, you know what? I've been retired from the game for a while. This is kind of overwhelming, but very cool. And yeah, they got like 8 dates that, going on. And it's all like the Bay Area in California, Northwest, following the Portland Trail Blazers game, Chicago. I mean, these are big markets.
Wow.
Washington,
Wow.
D.C. Yeah. And I'm like, man, I thought I was old and forgotten.
You know what? Athletes are never forgotten. It's just you always come back on a second life or a third life because fans never go away. So that's really awesome. So what we'll do is we'll take the information, Clint will get it to us, and we will put that in our podcast as well. So if you're listening to our podcast, you can see the information below.
That's true. So let's go ahead and get started with our questions.
Well, can I just say first, I just want to thank Clint for doing this with us because, as most of you know, this is a brand new podcast for us. And I have to say, we were just sort of saying, like, let's reach out because Shauna told me your email address was at the end of your book. So when I got to the end of the book and saw it, I thought, I'm just going to send out an email and see if he's willing to talk to us. And so we just want to thank you for giving us a chance to hear you and to hear more about your story.
I put that email in the back of the book probably for a reason that people probably wouldn't think. I put it in there because I wanted to hear critics. I wanted the people to say, you know what, you're an idiot, you shot yourself, or you did this, or you know what. And oh no, seriously, because people can be very judgmental, and that, you know what, I've only received one negative email, and I'm talking probably 1,000, probably close to 1,000 emails, because the book's been out for probably 4 or 5 years now. I think it came out in 2014.
Yeah.
And I responded to that gentleman and said, because he was saying something like, what you went through is nothing like cancer, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, sir, I never, ever compared my struggles or my demons to cancer because I've never had cancer. So how could I even? And I took the high road, and he emailed me back, and we ended up exchanging emails on a good level, like friendly. And he kind of apologized for lashing out, and I said, well, we all, until you walk a mile in somebody's shoes, you really can't judge or say or anything. I mean, my demons were my demons, and I had an email from a pastor yesterday, and he had read my book, and he was very, very, I guess I get the sense of a little bit overwhelmed that he knows a lot of people, although he's never struggled with my demons of obsessive compulsive disorder, depression, alcoholism, the self-medicating and all those things. But he knows many, many people that have. And for him to reach out and say, man, oh man, I have a better understanding. And he's a pastor.
Yeah.
That was a super cool email. And like I said, I probably had, oh geez, it's got to be over 1,000 emails, Facebook, all that stuff. And I answer everyone.
One of the things Sean and I had talked about was we just think that you, after we read your book, and one of the comments that we made was that you are Like you like everyone, like you get along with people, you like building those relationships with people. So I think it's just another way that you get 1,000 emails, you're going to build relationships there as well. So we're not surprised by that.
Well, yeah, but that's to a fault on my side because I'm very even at my age and everything I've been through, blah blah blah. Try to be, self-help books and this and that. I'm actually a very insecure person. Like most athletes, believe it or not, are the most
Yeah.
insecure people in the world because
Yeah.
they're judged by their performance. And even growing up, if I played a good game, at 12, 13, 14 years old, I was a good guy. If I had a
Yep.
bad game, I was a bad person. Now, how sick is that thinking?
Yeah.
And that
No,
is a lot of athletes think that.
yeah.
So, I appreciate the compliment, but a lot of it is to a fault on my side because I'm
Sure.
I'm I'm still working on self-love.
Well, that's something I think we all do I think we all struggle with that on a daily basis, honestly.
isn't isn't that the truth, huh?
Well, let's get to our first question because we have a few questions for you today. But the first one we wanted to ask was, and it's a two-part question, so I'll ask both. But how did you come to write your autobiography, and were you worried that writing your memoir might trigger your PTSD?
Ooh, man, you're going right to the heart right away. That a girl.
Yeah.
Love it. So, I'm a suicide survivor. I wake up, I shot myself, and it was like 11 years ago yesterday to the date. And
Oh,
yeah, and so
wow.
we all have, yeah, anniversaries. Your body remembers, your mind remembers, your spirit remembers. So I have to be very conscious of my anniversaries. And yeah, I've struggled the last week, and I'll probably struggle for another week. Just insomnia. I never know how it's going to hit me, but it's usually insomnia. And so I wake up. They put me in a induced coma, and I
Yeah.
was in the coma for I don't know a week or two. And when I came out, I was like, "Holy crap! I've almost died 3 times. I've got a
Yeah.
bullet in my head, and I'm still here." I'm either a really bad shot or, God has got something planned for me. There's something. So you do a lot of reflecting, and that's when I was in the works of writing a book because people had been saying, "Hey, you got all these funny stories. You're kind of a character guy, funny, blah blah blah." So it was going to be a book mostly on funny hockey stories, which we've all read those books. Well,
Oh,
well, yeah, that really changed so I called this guy, Dan Robson, who co-wrote the book with me. And I said, Dan, are you interested in writing a book with me? I've already got it almost done, but it's all funny stuff. I want to talk about the real life Clint Malarchuk, the mental ill guy, the guy that struggled with depression and anxiety and all these things. And so we got all that figured out. But Dan was so good. I don't want to sound arrogant, but the book has gotten great praise. It's very raw. There,
yeah.
it's like it's right, right there. I mean, I didn't hold back, and I thought if I'm going to do it, but I got to give it Dan the credit because he was the one. I'd tell a story, and we've all got stories, and he goes, "Well, Clint, what were you thinking?" Or Clint, what were you feeling at that time? And
Yeah.
that's when I went into the depth of the opening up the wounds again. And yes, it did absolutely 100% re-trigger my PTSD,
Wow.
and to a point where I started to drink again.
Yeah.
And that's been a demon that I battled, off and on my whole life. And as many people that understand, and I don't even like mental illness as a word, struggling with life,
Hmm.
anxiety, depression, divorce is very depressive. Losing a loved one, it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
always that you're mentally ill,
Hmm.
but you are going to feel some real emotional pain. And so we all can identify and relate to that pain, even though we're not mentally ill like Clint Malarchuk. So Dan brought that out of me. and it was hard. It was so a week before the book was going to be released. I remember I was standing in my barn and I'm talking to Dan, and uh, sorry,
No, it's okay. We're
uh,
listening. Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. It gets emotional even now,
yeah.
and I just broke down. And he goes, Clint, what's wrong? The book's coming out. This is great. And I said, Dan, I may have made the biggest mistake of my life,
Wow.
um, by being so honest and raw
Yeah.
and vulnerable. And he said, you know what, Clint? And that was his first book that he had ever written. I gave him a good chance, and he's written
Wow.
several now. He's a renowned author now.
Yeah.
But he said, Clint, you know what? The 6 months that we spent together, this is going to be the best thing you ever did in your life.
And I just want to say, yeah, we couldn't agree more because when we did our review of the book, that's one of the things we talked about was we just said, for you to show that vulnerable side, because you're a man's man, you're a cowboy, you're a hockey player, but you were able to vulnerable side.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
also said to Shauna, the word that really struck me was resilient, because I just don't know what you've been through. Boy, your resiliency is just off the charts. It's amazing. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Um, because I've always hung my hat on that man's man thing. And is that the true Clint, or is
Oh,
that the hiding behind
yeah,
the cowboy hat or the goalie mask or the macho guy that
yeah,
So who am I? Am I really that tough?
yep.
Um, I can take a ton of physical pain, and that's one thing I always say about mental illness. People that don't understand mental illness, because how can you if you unless you've had it? It is. All I can say is you can't explain it, but it is the most painful thing. And I've had many surgeries, over a dozen surgeries. I rode bucking horses. I played in the NHL. I boxed. I've had my nose broken, 10 times. So I know physical pain, and I would take physical pain over the emotional and mental pain any day, any day.
How did the writing collaboration work then? I mean, you said you kind of had the book done, sort of, but how did that collaboration work?
Well, I was working with the Florida Panthers, and the a lot of people over the years have said, because I'm kind of an outgoing, as goofy and crazy as my life has been, I'm actually an outgoing. I do crazy stuff, like off the wall stuff. I'm kind of the team clown guy. And again, is that hiding behind or covering up my emotional pain? I don't know. Sometimes maybe it was, but other times I think that's just who I am. Anyways, our media relations guy in Florida with the Panthers, he really, really, really wanted me to, start writing a book. And this guy's got a really funny sense of humor, and so we did. We started writing down all these funny stories and everything. And then he left Florida and he became an athletic director up in upstate New York. And we and I started to spiral down in my own misery and and pain and things. So we just kind of left it. So then
Mhm.
I after I shot myself, I called him and I said to him, let's get this done. He goes, I just don't know if I got the time. I'm an athletic director at this big university and everything. I said, okay, would you mind if we bring somebody else on board? So Dan
Oh,
Robson had written a book, article on me in Sportsnet magazine up in Canada. And I told him, I said, you know what? This is deep to my heart. If I'm going to spill my guts and give you an article, I don't want you twisting and putting things in, how you can put words around a
yeah.
phrase and it can come out totally different. Well, he really did good by me. He wrote just a wonderful article that really expressed my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions. So that's when I called Dan and I said, look, I've talked to Randy. Do you want to do this? And so he had to take a year leave of or not a year, 6 months, half a year leave of absence to follow me around, talk, and I'm coaching in the NHL. We went on he came on road trips with it, so we became really close, good friends, very emotional stuff, a lot of tears. And, I'm going to say the book is great because it's my book. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We
But
love it.
but you know what? I'm going to say he made it great. They're my
Awesome.
stories. Yeah. But he brought me to, the emotional levels the vulnerability, um, the, the happiness, the joy, and, the deep and dark side too. And he drew that out of me. But I don't want to get that wrong. Don't take he did it in a very compassionate way. He would say, Clint, we need to take a break. And I said, no, I don't need a break. You know what I mean? He was
Yeah,
very like, and I was warned by one of my therapists, about, writing the book. And, she said, Clint, you know what, this might not be the easiest thing. You think it's going to be easy, blah blah blah. And I'm like, hey, I got this. I have no problem. I got this. And
wow.
yet, by the time I, was finishing the book, I was back into, kind of a dark place. You know, I was self-medicating again with alcohol, and, I
Sure.
caught it immediately. I went to rehab immediately on my own
Yeah,
choice, saying, all right,
yeah,
I don't want to go down this road anymore. And,
yeah,
you take one step, back, take two forward, whatever it is, So at
yep.
least I was in a healthy enough place to get my help, to get the help I needed.
The next question we want to ask, because Sean and I talked about this a little bit too, is just about sports management today. So the question is, because as we know, you had that horrific accident with the skate to your neck, and
Yeah.
and that happened in 1989. So the question is, has sports management changed enough, and how do you think your situation would have been handled today? Because as we know in the book, you were back on the ice in 10 days, which is just shocking.
Well, I don't know. Had I, had to do it over again, it would have been nice to have some counseling, some guidance, or anything. I had nothing. I didn't think
Yeah,
of it either. So I'm not saying the team was wrong or the NHL was wrong. It wasn't brought up, and I didn't think of it either. But then,
yeah.
I don't know. It's been about 10 years now. Richard Zednick cut his jugular vein in Buffalo. Ironically, same town, kind of a cutthroat town. Um, yeah.
Sorry.
And
Okay.
I love Buffalo and I love the people, and I throw that joke out there all the time because they were so great and awesome, supportive. But he had counseling. His teammates had counseling, coaches,
Yeah,
wives, kids, whoever was, in remotely involved in that incident was, at least offered the chance to, have a therapist or a counselor. So to answer your question, yeah, we've, obviously, because I'll just go back, 89, nothing was even brought up. Clint Malarchuk is a hero. He came back in 10 days. He's got a band to this day in New York called Malarchuk. I mean, what an
really?
impact oh yeah.
Wow.
And what an impact that I had, just having that cowboy attitude. You get bucked off a horse, you get right back on. My thinking was, the longer I wait, the more the fear is gonna, So the whole plan was, as soon as the stitches, came out, I was gonna play. And, yeah, no counseling offered, none, and I didn't think of it either. So, today I think we've come a really long ways because Zednick cut his. It's been 8 or 10 years now, and, so, you know, it's been 30 years, I think.
Well, one of the things you said in the book, which I just thought was a brilliant idea, and I'm dying to know if they've ever done anything like this, but one of the things you commented on was that, if someone is struggling, how great it would be if there was an anonymous way for them to seek help
Yeah,
where the owner of the team wouldn't know, the coaches wouldn't know, you know what I mean, the fans
yeah.
wouldn't. Is that even remotely, do you think that'll ever happen, or has it happened that way?
Isn't that a shame that it has to be anonymous? I mean, think
Well,
about it. Yeah, it
yes,
is.
yeah,
So now what we're doing, I do a lot of public speaking now, and there's a lot of corporations and their HR people and that. So they do have this anonymous company that they hire for their employees. They can call, and I just think that's wonderful. But on that same note, and now I'm going extreme here on one end to the other, isn't it? Now, if you've got, let's say, you get diagnosed with cancer, you're going to go into your boss and say, you know what? I just got this horrible news. They think they're going to, I'm going to be okay. And right away, that boss is going to say, what do you need from us? How much
yep,
time? Take time off, work from home, whatever you need. Now, if you got mental illness, are you going to go into your boss? You're not. You know why? Because you're going to be judged, and you're going to be judged because of the stigma. The stigma being that, oh, the guy's crazy, the gal's crazy, unstable. And there's so many people in now that I've been doing this for half a decade, meeting so many people and hearing their fears and what the stigma of mental illness does to us. We suffer in silence. We
yeah,
suffer in
yeah,
darkness, and it's because of the stigma mostly. But we think we're the only ones because no one talks about it. No one talks about it. You see somebody with a broken arm, we all know physical pain, and you're going to go, "Ooh, man, that must have hurt." Huh? Yeah. Well, try walking a mile in somebody's shoes that's suffered with depression, anxiety, OCD, bipolar, schizophrenia, all these things.
right.
They're not talked about, and they're covered up, and everybody goes in silence because of the stigma. And that's what we got to. That's my um, main objective is just let's get talking about this, because you know what? I have met so many people. They've heard me speak or they've read my book or whatever, and for the first time in their life, they go, "Holy crap! Me too. Me too."
Yeah, and with athletes though, because I think that's one of the things you opened my eyes when I read the book. I'm a sports fan for many 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 years. I'm a little bit older than you, by the way, but I've been a big sports fan, and I had never really thought about how tenuous is that hold on the job in terms of you got to play well. If you're not playing well, you could be traded, whatever. And that stress. So not only do you have the stress of trying to perform at top notch all the time, then if you have mental illness into the mix, it's like I don't even
Right.
know how you function.
Well, for me, after the jugular vein, getting, almost dying on the ice, coming back so quick, I became this big, big hero. Courageous, hardworking, gritty, blah, blah, blah. And it
Yeah,
wasn't until the next year I rode that love, that support, and adrenaline of upstate New York. It was the next year when the adrenaline wore off. That's when I started to have the nightmares and the flashbacks and severe, severe depression, severe OCD. Hard to leave the house. And
yeah,
what did I do? I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody. I went 10 days without sleeping, because of the nightmares. I didn't want to sleep because that skate would come up. So here I am doing all this by myself. I'm, just going to try do my job. My eyes are burning in practice from lack of sleep. It just, and why would I do that? Because I didn't want the team to know that maybe well, we perceive mental illness as a mental weakness, and it's not. It's an
hmm,
illness. In the US, we have
yeah,
22, 17, now it's down to 17, I believe, but we used to have 22 suicides a day by our Afghanistan and Iraqi veterans. These are the most toughest mentally people, men and women, that go over there, tough mentally, but they come back. Now, all of a sudden, we want to call them mentally weak because they've suffered some kind of trauma. They're not. They're
yeah,
injured. They're mentally injured. They're not mentally weak. We've established that. That's the toughest job in the world.
yeah,
And yet, so my point being, take the most toughest men and women in the world to do that job, but still they get inflicted with a mental illness. Oh, that's with them. It's mostly PTSD, which PTSD also encompasses anxiety, depression, anger, things like that. So I'm sure you get my point.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, and it's funny because it leads me into something because this often, a faith life can often help people kind of navigate some of this as well. So my question is, did you develop a faith life or develop a stronger faith life after all of your events that you had kind of been through?
You're talking faith in like
Like
God
faith
and
is in
all that?
God or yeah, really. I know some people aren't into
Okay, yeah.
organized and some are, whichever. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I've always believed in God. I think I'm a Christian, just not a very good one because
Same here.
None of us are.
but 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 I but I try real hard. Yeah, but there was a time in my life. See, you know, I always thought my purpose in life was to be, because it's all I thought about, obsessed about, and everything was to be an NHL goaltender. And then the next best thing is a coach in the NHL. So I
Mhm.
did that. So I had this kind of a line of success, but this parallel
Yeah.
line right beside it, going straight up with it, was guilt. Guilt. I'm in the NHL. I got the world. I'm living my dream, and I'm depressed, and I got anxiety, and I got all these, you know. So I got these two lines, and now I understand my purpose. That, you know, faith wise, I guess. And I cussed God. Let me tell you, I cursed. Oh, I did. I said, God, take me or
Oh
take
yeah.
this, because I cannot live this anyway. I mean, that's what led to me putting a gun to my, you know, under my chin and shooting myself, because I just couldn't live. I did not want to die, but I didn't want to live. I couldn't. I just wanted to turn the pain off, kill the hamster in that treadmill, you know.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
very
Wow.
spontaneous. I didn't leave a suicide note. Yes, I had suicidal thoughts before that, just because of the pain in my head and heart and soul. So yeah, there was times that I really, I always believed in God, and that's why I said God, and I mean I swore at him, say, "Are you kidding me? Are you really kidding me? Take me or take this, because I can't take this much longer." And yeah, so that's a very
Yeah. Yeah.
um, honest statement.
I was just going to say it's a very, very honest statement. Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
Even though I was talking to God, I had a gun in my mouth. Yeah, I know. It was pretty intense. Where I just, you
Wow.
know, and it was years later when I did finally pull the trigger. But you know, thank God it was only a 22 when I did
Yeah.
do it. Because the time I'm talking about, it was a 9 millimeter, and that would have pretty much blown my head off.
All right. Well, my gosh, my next question though, it's kind of a long question, but so bear with me here. But as reading the book, it says we wanted to say, as a child, hockey soothed your anxiety, but as an adult, it fed it. You know, the worry over not playing well and or being traded, etc. Do you think your life might have been different if you had had a regular non-sport 9 to 5 job?
You know, that's one of those things, and I've said it probably twice in this interview, this podcast, where I've said, you know, until you walk a mile in somebody else's shoes. So for me to actually say, yeah, you know, I, I'm reflecting right now, and my thought is yes. If I, because I thought about my buddies back home, and I'm living the
Yeah.
dream, but I'm also living the nightmare of the pressure, and with mental illness, trying to, and I didn't know I was mentally ill. I just thought it was pressure, and a lot of it I'm sure was just pressure. But I had no training on, and you know, now athletes get mental training and all this and that. But you know, to answer that question, would I, you know what, the NHL, playing in the NHL, playing at the highest level. When I played in the NHL, there was 21 teams. So that's two goalies to a team. So if my math is right, there's 42
Yeah.
goalies in the league. So I was one of 42 of the
Yeah.
best in the world. Yet I thought I was not that good.
Wow.
I was so insecure. Yeah, well, and
Yeah.
thus the OCD. I thought all my success came from my obsessive compulsive disorder, doing things over and over and working out crazy, like in the summer, 8 hours a day was like a job, you know. And I'm not saying I enjoyed working out. I was getting paid to work out, but I felt like I had to do it because I didn't have the skill. Now I reflect back and I go, you know what? 42 in the world.
Yeah.
That's not bad. Like if you're a C, you know, then but it's funny how age gives us wisdom. Now I wish I had this wisdom when I was, 25,
Yeah.
you know. But when I was 25, I was dealing with anxiety and depression. Yes, I was in the NHL, but man, I was guilty because I got the world by the tail, and I'm not happy because I'm just going through everything.
Yeah.
I want to ask a follow-up question because I don't know when, as reading through your book and everything, and when Rebecca was asking me about this question, I said, I don't know if Clint could ever, like, if he would ever want to work a 9 to 5 job, because even your second profession, which is the equine dentistry,
I
is
know.
not, I mean, you're up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Even your ranch, that's a 24-hour type of, you know, uh,
Yeah, it's not really a job, it's a lifestyle, right?
right.
You're making money. It's your business. Today I was up at 3:30.
Oh my
Um,
God.
yeah, I know, right? But like I mentioned, the anniversary thing. So
Yeah.
it was a insomnia thing. I
Yeah.
didn't really sleep all night, and to be honest with you, I went through this before a few years ago without even being consciously aware it was my anniversary. And that anniversary was the March 22nd of the Jugular Vein one. And I was on the
Mm.
road out east, and I'm like, boy, I haven't slept in 3 days. I sure feel good, you know, like crazy. And I'm like, why? And I went, oh my God, it's the anniversary of
Wow.
that accident. Yeah, we got to be very conscious of these anniversaries. But yeah, I've never had a 9 to 5 job. I've always been a cowboy, hockey player, animal practitioner, all these things that, I pretty much run my own hours, and they're not always great hours. Like tomorrow, I got to do a bunch of preg checks on a bunch of cattle, probably 250 head, and I'm gonna love it. I'm gonna love it. You know, so
Well, you're going to love this follow-up question then, because the next question was, do you miss, and I know it's been a while, but do you miss having a hockey career?
I don't. I've been so fortunate. Number one, I went right from being a player into coaching, and that was special. And it wasn't in the minor, like the juniors, or it was like AAA in Las Vegas, and so that was a blessing for sure because it's really hard for players to transition. And so I always thought I might want to be a coach, but this gave me a kind of a feeling out process. And then I'm kind of in limbo with a coaching job. They hired a new GM, and he was like, we're not sure what we're going to do with you or whatever. All of a sudden it's July, and I'm going, well, if you're not going to tell me soon, there's no jobs open, so I'm going to go to school. So my story about school would be um, I was just a terrible, terrible student because of my anxiety.
Yeah.
And once I got healthy, and all of a sudden I went to school, and I blasted through this course, a 3-year program. I did it in a year. For me, I was like,
Wow.
holy crap! I'm actually, but to be honest with you, I was great on the hands-on part with the horses. The written exam, everybody, the last person before me that turned in their paper, I was still an hour and a half after them. So I still struggled with the
Yeah.
written, that part. But yeah, I mean, I look at my life now, and I'm like, holy, like I've got a doctorate. Yes, it's
Great.
honorary. We talked about.
No, you have to say where it's from, though. Go ahead. No, you have to say where it's from. I think you should, honor that. Yeah.
Yeah, Nipissing University up in Ontario.
All right.
And it's basically just because of all my outgoing work with the mentally ill and charity and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just I'm an author. I can barely read. I wrote a book. How does that happen?
Now, see, now you're living my dream. I have to admit, now you're living my dream to write a book. That's awesome.
Well, you know what? Writing a book is not that hard. It's getting it published. And I was so fortunate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I didn't know this. I knew nothing about writing books or anything like that, and the process and how it goes. Um, so you write a book and then you got to get it published. Well, the publishers were coming to me to write a book, and I guess that just doesn't happen. And I didn't know it. I'm just a dumb hockey player, dumb cowboy, right? And now I got two major. I had a Harper Collins and Penguin Random House, I think they were called, fighting over me. Like, okay, and I'm just going to go to the highest bidder. Like, I don't know. And I found out later that just doesn't happen very very often. To have that, but I guess I've been very public about my trials and tribulations, my disorders, all that stuff. And so maybe that's the reward, as painful as it
Yeah.
has been to
Yeah.
write the book, to do my public speaking, which is also very gratifying, by the way. Um, have people hug you after and say, "Oh my God, you're the first person I've ever heard. You told my story,
Yeah.
and I've been suffering in silence." So, yeah, and again, it goes back to that line of, yeah, I played in the NHL, blah blah
Yeah.
blah, success, but I also had this and cussing God through those demons that I was fighting, right? And now I know my purpose. Like, to me, the two most, Mark Twain, the quote, two most important days in your life: the day you're born and the day you figure out why you were born. And for me, I thought it was hockey. I just thought it was hockey. That's why I'm born. That's what I'm doing. All my self-worth, self-hate, everything was through how I played. Now today I know why I was born. Hockey was just hockey just gives me a platform.
Absolutely. And that's what, it's funny because that dovetails really nicely with my next question, which is how has your life changed since the book was published? And I will say, I did see when I researched you, I looked up and found that TED talk you did, which was just beautiful. And I really thought, I kind of think that might be your purpose, really.
Well, well, thank you for that. That TED talk was one of the most stressful
Really?
talks. Oh God, it was terrible. You got to cram, because I do public speaking. I do an hour talk, and now I got to put it in like 18 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And you know what? I've got way too much trauma and tragedy in my life to put into 18 minutes, right? You know, and I'm joking, obviously, but yeah, that was really hard. But you know what? I was like, wow. And my earpiece flipped out, and I
Oh,
rolled with it, man. I was just like, oh yeah, I was like, I was pretty happy with how I pulled that one off. Um, but when it comes to public speaking, as you can obviously tell, I'm not the most polished guy in the world, right? And I am who I am. I'm a hockey guy. I'm a rodeo guy. I'm a cowboy guy. But and so I wrote the book, and my life really did change. So now I'm trying to go, oh my God, now I'm speaking in front of 500, 2,000 people. That's the biggest one I've done.
wow.
And I'm like, oh my God, I gotta learn some big words. And oh, I'm serious. No, this is where I was. I was going, I gotta be really, really cool and polished, and I'm going to dress in a nice suit. And I hate suits. I wear a suit jacket and a vest maybe, but blue jeans are my default mode, right?
Yeah.
So one of my through the NHL Alumni Association, we had they do these kind of they call it communicating with confidence, and they give it to players, former players, to learn how to not just even communicate in the business world, public speaking, how to leave a proper voicemail.
Oh,
There's yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I can tell you how to do that. Um, and and so I took this course like 4 times, and you only take it once usually. And then finally, the lady that puts it on, who is a magnificent, her name is Cindy Novak. She just a rock star, she really changed my world as far as public speaking. Just the book. Well, you asked me the question, what changed after the book? Well, first of all,
yeah.
Cindy Novak came into my life, and one day she said to me, Clint, she goes, I've never met a bigger redneck than you in all my life. And you know what? And redneck can be defined in so many different ways. So make sure you get it in the right way. I'm just a country bumpkin. That that's to me the redneck. And well, obviously
Hmm.
I'm working with horses and cows. I'm preg checking tomorrow, all that stuff. But she goes, Clint, if you're passionate about what you speak about and just be yourself, you will never fail. And from that day on,
Yeah.
I went, holy crap, I am so passionate about, helping people, saving lives, suicide prevention, depression, anxiety, all this stuff. So passionate. I mean, God spared me. God spared me for those that are still suffering. That's what changed my
Yeah.
life. You wake up with a bullet in your head and you're going to go, holy crap, I should have been dead 3 times.
Yeah.
And God spared me. Now figure it out, Clint. So that came the book, and that came the public speaking, and then Cindy Novak teaching me, you know what, Clint, you can never change. You are who you are. So just be who you are. And you're obviously passionate about what you speak about. So I've never really sweated a talk now.
Yeah.
I mean, you're always anxious. I never get nervous. I get anxious.
Yeah.
I'm anxious. I want to get up there. Let's go. Let's go. Come on. Oh, this guy's come on, you're president of what? The Donkey Association? And you're really boring me.
That's
and,
funny.
come on, get me up there. I want to get up there. I want to rock this crowd. So that's the anxiousness. That's um, it's excitement. It's excitement because I know I've got a message, and I know it's passionate, and I know that people like what for me the most rewarding thing is standing ovations.
Oh,
And then you, oh my God, and then you tell my last talk, and my mom was there. It was so cool for me because mom's there and all these people are, and she go, mom's a crusty old gal. She's funny. And I asked her after, I said, Mom, what'd you think of my talk? And she goes, well, you sure make a lot of people cry. I'm like, well, that's it's kind of a it's kind of a heartfelt, heavy, heavy, heavy subject, Mom. But she goes, you made a lot of them laugh too, because I tell a lot of jokes, and being a heavy topic, you got to keep it light.
yeah. How often are you out on the road doing your talks? I mean, taking you off the ranch. How often do you do it?
Well, I would say, I do 2, 3, 4 a month, and then
Wow.
like July and August are pretty much dead. But yeah, September, I've done a few already. I've got 3 coming up, like boom, 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 up in Alberta and BC. And they got one in Colorado coming up in December. So it's really sporadic. Like you'll do one, then you'll do 2 or 3, 4 in a row,
Yeah.
like, days apart.
Yeah.
And then, so it's all over the map. It really is. But it's something I'm so passionate about that I look forward to it.
Yeah.
I do dread travel. I do dread hotels. I do dread the anxiety of being alone on the road, and um, those things. But you know what? It's yeah, who doesn't dread stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I have a question too, because one of the things that I loved about the book too is just your relationship with Joni and how much obviously the two of you have a deeply committed relationship to each other, which I think is really beautiful. And so even though she couldn't be with us today, I'm going to ask you a question that I would have asked her, and maybe if you can answer it or give us a response that she might give, which is, if we were to ask her, what advice would you have for family members who have a loved one suffering from mental illness?
And that is such a great question. And again, it's like the walk a mile in my shoes. She has no idea on addiction, no idea on mental illness. She grew up in this great Beaver Cleaver family, military U.S. family, flying. Her dad was a pilot in the Air Force, lived in Germany, and what I, being a spiritual guy, I think, wow, you lived all over the world, and leaving every year or two, you make friends, you leave your friends, on and on. I think, her plan through God was um, preparing her for Clint Malarchuk down the road. And she has absolutely gone through uh, hell with me. I was very, very angry. One thing about PTSD, and I've worked with a ton of veterans, um, and we all I started a support group here in my hometown. And the one thing is, oh my God, we can relate to depression, we can relate to a degree of anxiety, but the one common denominator is anger. Anger. And I'm like, well, why are we so angry? Well, because we lose the ability to control our thoughts, feelings, emotions, um, all these things. And it gets very, very
Yeah.
frustrating, and we lash out. And who do you lash out at? You lash out at the closest one to you, because hopefully they're going to stay. And usually, if it's a wife or, something like intimate like that, they're going to stay. But it's been a rocky
Yeah.
road. The greatest, and I talk about her in my talks. I show a picture of us on our wedding day. We're on a cliff overlooking Lake Tahoe, and it's a beautiful scene, and that's where we were married at. And I give her credit all the time that I can, because she went through so much with me. And I guess it's the ones you love. Even to this day, some, like, this being my anniversary, around my anniversary and all that. Like, yeah, I have not been. Uh, and she came up to me yesterday and said, "Clint, this is the day, And I didn't know. I kind of forgot. I should keep better track of that stuff. And she just says, "I want you to know I love you."
Yeah.
And so people that have read my book, um, and they want it signed, and they come to an event that I'm at or something, and it really pisses me off because they want her to sign it. I'm kidding.
Okay, I have to
No,
admit, I bought a copy of the book, and I want both of you to sign. If I meet you
well,
guys in person one day, I want
she
you both to sign it.
she it just tickles me to death, because if they've read the book, they know that there's a real hero um, in there. And I don't want to call myself a victim, but what would be the word? The sufferer, the ill one. And she was the
Yeah.
one. She was the one, and it just tickles me when they say, "Would you please sign my book?" To her, yeah, it
That's
really
awesome.
does. So,
That's awesome.
I joke around, but the truth being told, that's
Yeah.
that's my girl.
Okay, well, I have to, I'm not sure if Shauna has another question, but I have one question, because one of the things I like about the book especially is that you have a great sense of humor, and you said something in the book that I'm really curious about. You said rodeo guys are a lot more extreme than hockey players. So is there any story you could share with us about rodeo guys versus hockey in terms of how outrageous they might be?
I can't really give you just one example, because I have many, many examples where guys, of course, to play a hockey game, it's 60 minutes, and, all the prep and everything. And they just get on an animal for 8 seconds. But I've seen guys with their biceps, that
Yeah.
tendon torn, and their biceps in a ball,
Ooh.
and they have to stretch that. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like a tennis ball right there. The taping. Oh, there's a guy named, I think his name was Tough Hedeman. Was it Tough? Well, it doesn't matter. I can't remember the guy. I think it
Yeah.
was Tough Hedeman. Anyways, we're in Las Vegas. I lived there at the time, and I went to all the NFR events and everything. And I saw this guy's face just get crushed by a bull. They went head to head. Like the bull bucked up, pulled him down, then bucked up again. They went head to head, and his face. I saw it the next day, and he looked like the Elephant Man or something. Like he just. Are you kidding me? What? It was hideous. It wasn't just a bad injury; it was absolutely hideous. And he got on a bull. He got on another bull that
Oh
night.
my gosh.
Yeah, yeah, and stuff like that. But it's different. It's different. Like in hockey or sports, some sports, team sports. You know, if you're hurt and you can't play, well, they'll put somebody else in, right? Replacement.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, in rodeo, it's you and only you,
Ugh.
and your paycheck is you.
I myself am a country bumpkin too. I wouldn't go so far as to say redneck, but I will attest to being a country bumpkin. And
Well, you got to define redneck. Some people think a redneck is a racist guy or something. To me, a redneck's just some old country guy that like right. I sit in my truck. I got what I played in the NHL, and my newest truck is in 2002 flatbed diesel,
Uh,
the noisiest. Oh yeah, yeah, and I wouldn't trade that sucker in for anything. That's a redneck. That's a redneck. And I used to love when my last job in the NHL was coaching with the Calgary Flames, and they're all driving the Beamers and the
wow.
Mercedes and all this. And oh yeah, yeah. And this truck is a beater. It's a big old noisy, like I said, a flatbed diesel. And I'd park as close to to one of the cars. So he he couldn't even open his door.
I like that.
And I just do it for my own giggles, right? Just because you know what you guys got so much money. Here's another story, and I don't know, you might want to edit this one out. I was coaching in San Antonio, and um, this this one kid, he was from, I think, Czechoslovakia, and he's San Antonio was Florida Panthers farm team at the time. So this kid has the audacity to park, where the Zamboni might go
Oh yeah.
outside and dump the
Yeah.
snow. So there's a big overhead door. Well, this kid would park there all the time. It says no parking, Zamboni in and out, whatever. So this kid would always park there. So one day, this kid, the Zamboni, he didn't see the car. He came out because the Zamboni, the front is really high, and maybe he wasn't. Well, he nailed this guy's car and dumped the snow on it and everything. Well, yeah, but you know what happened? They fired the poor kid that's driving the Zamboni.
Oh.
I was so pissed off. I went into the rink manager. I said, you guys are totally wrong on this, because that guy's he's got an NHL contract or whatever. Are you serious? He parks there every day like he doesn't
Yeah.
care. He's arrogant. He's ignorant. He's
Yep.
entitled.
Yep.
He needed his Mercedes run over by a Zamboni.
seriously,
I would like to have seen that. That would have been pretty cool, actually.
yeah.
It was because it somehow it ended up dumping snow on it too. It was kind of funny.
Awesome.
But I was really upset when the kid lost his job. He's probably making what, $10 an hour driving a Zamboni, and this guy's making 500,000 playing in the minor leagues.
Wow. Wow.
That's crazy. Well, Clint, we want to go ahead and wrap this up. So thank you so much for spending some time with us today. Don't forget, guys, to like, subscribe, rate, and review. And we'll see you again.